Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep Porch. Tonight, we're exploring a part of nature that most of us never truly see. A world that comes alive when we go to sleep. A world shaped by moonlight, starlight, shadow, and silence. This is the realm of nocturnal animals. A hidden universe filled with strange creatures and powerful senses adapted to the darkness. The night is never truly empty. It breathes with quiet, life-active, intricate, and filled with patterns that awaken only when daylight slips away. In this darker world, everything shifts into a new rhythm. Nothing behaves quite the same as it does beneath the sun. The creatures of the night do not merely endure the darkness. They belong to it. They move through it with ease, thriving in the calm quiet where shadows become their shelter and silence becomes their guide. They use subtle cues from the sky. They shape sound into maps. They communicate with glows. They navigate by forces we can barely detect. The dark becomes a landscape of information, and they move through it with remarkable skill. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is relax. Allow your breathing to slow and your mind to soften. And let these nighttime wonders carry you to sleep. Let's begin. Some nocturnal animals navigate by reading the Milky Way. This ability solves a serious problem faced by species that must cross open terrain at night. When the ground lacks distinct shapes and the horizon disappears into darkness, it becomes easy to lose direction. Many animals would end up walking in loops without realizing it. The solution for a select few is to use the Milky Way as a stable reference point. They look up briefly, compare the position of the galaxy to their current orientation, and set a straight path before continuing their run or flight. This behavior is not a vague reaction to light. It is a deliberate navigational strategy that holds up even when the moon is absent and most stars are too faint to isolate individually. Their visual systems are tuned to detect broad patterns rather than fine details, which makes the hazy band of the Milky Way far more useful than single points of light. By relying on this method, they avoid wasting time and energy in exposed areas and reduce the chance of being intercepted by predators that look for repeated tracks or lingering movement. It is a solution that links survival on the ground to structure far beyond Earth. Certain bats use sound to create a detailed map of the night. They do this through a system far more complex than simple echo detection. Each call they produce carries specific information based on pitch, duration, and spacing. When these sounds bounce off objects, the returning echoes differ in subtle ways, and their brains interpret those differences rapidly. This builds a continuous internal map that updates with every wing beat. It allows them to detect insects that move erratically, avoid branches hidden by darkness, and fly with confidence through tight spaces. Their acoustic perception is so refined that they can tell whether an object is hard, soft, or textured without touching it. They can also track multiple moving targets simultaneously by separating echo patterns. This approach gives them an advantage in environments where vision is unreliable. It also explains why they thrive in caves and dense forests that restrict light. The map they build is not static. It changes in real time as the world around them shifts, giving them a level of spatial awareness that few animals can match. Owls fly so quietly that prey cannot detect their movement. Their silence is the result of specialized feather structures that manage airflow with remarkable precision. The front edges of their wings break up incoming air before it becomes noisy turbulence. Soft fringes along the sides distribute airflow smoothly, and the upper surfaces of their feathers reduce vibrations that would normally produce sound. This combination allows them to glide at low speeds without creating warning cues for small mammals that depend on sensitive hearing to stay alive. Quiet flight also helps owls assess the environment more clearly because they are not competing with noise from their own wings. This improves their ability to pinpoint prey movements in grass, snow, or leaf litter. Their hunting strategy relies on approaching targets before any defensive reaction begins. Silence extends the time they can remain undetected. It also reduces the likelihood that prey will sense air movement associated with an incoming strike. The result is an efficient predator that can capture animals that rarely see danger approaching in time to escape. Some desert rodents evade nighttime predators by hearing footsteps through the sand. Their survival depends on detecting threats that approach with almost no audible sound. Sand muffles many noises, so air-based hearing is not enough. These rodents solve the problem by sensing vibrations that travel along the ground. They carry within them a remarkable sense of hearing, tuned to the quietest events in the darkness. Their auditory structures are enlarged and exquisitely sensitive, shaped to detect the low, deep frequencies made when a predator steps, slides, or shifts its weight. Even the faintest vibration becomes a message revealing distance, direction, and intent. With this early whisper of warning, they can move before danger ever reaches striking range. A subtle tremor in the soil may send them sprinting across the ground, leaping into the air, or slipping swiftly into the safety of their burrows. Each response guided by the delicate pattern of sound carried through the night. Nighttime improves vibrational detection because cooler temperatures change how sand transmits energy. The rodents use this advantage to stay active when many predators rely heavily on stealth. Their ability to interpret ground-based cues reduces the chance of ambush and supports efficient foraging. It demonstrates how nocturnal animals often rely on sensory pathways that daytime species rarely need. Certain nocturnal spiders use air currents to detect moving objects. These spiders depend on precise information about their surroundings because they often hunt without relying on vision. Their legs contain sensory hairs that bend when air shifts. Each hair responds to specific types of movement, allowing the spider to interpret signals such as wind beats, footsteps, or the movement of nearby objects. When potential prey approaches, the direction and rhythm of the air disturbance help the spider determine where to strike. This system allows them to catch insects that move unpredictably or remain hidden in the dark. It also warns them of predators that attempt silent attacks. Their sensitivity is so sharp that they can identify different species by the pattern of the airflow they create. This ability gives them a clear advantage at night when wind patterns are quieter and signals travel farther. It also supports their ability to judge the size of objects without touching them. These spiders succeed by transforming the surrounding air into a constant source of information. Some forest animals produce faint nighttime glows that reveal hidden signals. These glows are not bright enough to illuminate surroundings, but they are clearly visible to other members of the species. The glow may appear in patterns along the body, around the eyes, or across the fur. Each pattern carries information that helps individuals identify mates, avoid conflict, or coordinate group activity. Because the glow intensifies only in darkness, It reduces the risk of detection by predators that hunt during daylight. At night, the forest becomes a network of subtle visual signals, visible only at close range. This keeps communication targeted rather than broadcasting it widely. The behavior also helps animals maintain social structure when visibility is low. Some species use these clothes to monitor the movement of group members without relying on vocal cues that might attract attention. The adaptation shows how animals living in dense habitats solve communication challenges created by limited light. The globe provides a discreet and efficient method for sharing essential information. There are nocturnal fish that hunt by detecting faint electromagnetic fields. These fish operate in waters where visibility drops to near zero at night. Instead of relying on sight, they sense the weak electrical signals produced by the muscle activity of other animals. Their bodies contain specialized receptors that measure differences in the surrounding field. When prey swims nearby, the subtle distortion is enough to reveal its position. This quiet sensing ability works even when their prey is hidden behind drifting plants or scattered debris. It lets the fish follow tiny movements with remarkable precision, no matter how murky or dark the water becomes. The system is entirely passive. There is no need for the fish to send out signals of its own, and so it slips through the water unnoticed. At night, when so many aquatic creatures try to survive by keeping still or melting into the darkness, this soft electromagnetic awareness becomes a profound advantage, guiding the fish effortlessly through a world where light cannot reach. It opens access to prey that light-based hunters would miss. The approach highlights how aquatic species adapt to environments where darkness and structure make traditional hunting strategies ineffective. Certain frogs alter their skin chemistry each night to avoid detection. Their skin produces different compounds after sunset that alter how they reflect light and scent. These changes help them blend more effectively into nighttime surroundings. Some compounds reduce the visibility of their outlines by scattering light in ways that match nearby surfaces. Others reduce chemical traces that predators might follow. The shift does not require dramatic color changes. Instead, it fine-tunes their appearance and scent to suit the conditions of the night. These frogs often become active only after this chemical shift is complete. The timing is important because predators adjust their own behaviors as temperatures change. By updating their defenses each night, the frogs maintain a level of protection that responds to environmental pressure rather than relying on a single static trait. It also allows them to forage safely in areas where hiding places are limited. Their nightly transformation illustrates how small biochemical changes can provide significant survival benefits in nocturnal ecosystems. Some night-flying birds navigate by feeling Earth's magnetic field. They possess receptors that respond to magnetic information and send signals to parts of the brain associated with orientation. This system gives them a sense of direction, even when clouds block the stars and moon. At night, when visual cues are limited, the magnetic field provides a stable guide that helps them migrate or travel between feeding areas. The information they gather is not limited to direction. They can also detect changes in inclination and intensity, which helps them judge location along their route. These birds update their path continuously as they fly, combining magnetic input with wind patterns and internal timing. The ability allows them to maintain accurate movement across long distances without relying on landmarks. It also reduces navigational errors when weather changes suddenly. Their reliance on magnetic cues shows how nocturnal travel demands sensory systems capable of functioning independently of light. Some nocturnal mammals display ultraviolet markings that appear only under moonlight. These markings remain invisible during the day because bright sunlight overwhelms the wavelengths involved. At night, however, moonlight contains enough ultraviolet to reveal patterns that other members of the species can see clearly. The markings may indicate territory, reproductive status, or group membership. They provide a silent way to communicate in environments where sound might attract unwanted attention. The patterns are positioned on parts of the body that become visible only at close range, which keeps interactions focused and reduces confusion. This system is especially useful in habitats where dense vegetation blocks visibility. It allows individuals to recognize each other without relying on scent or vocalizations that predators could detect. The reliance on ultraviolet also ensures that the signals remain private to species capable of seeing them. This adaptation highlights the importance of selective communication in nocturnal life. Many geckos see colors in starlight that humans cannot detect. Their eyes contain photoreceptors that remain active under levels of illumination that would render human vision nearly useless. This sensitivity gives geckos the ability to distinguish subtle differences in their environment, when the only available light is the faint glow of stars. The advantage is significant because many objects that look identical to humans at night actually reflect light differently at wavelengths geckos can still perceive. This helps them identify surfaces suitable for climbing, locate insects that attempt to hide by remaining still, and navigate uneven terrain with accuracy. Their visual system does not operate as a simple low-light amplifier. Instead, it uses specialized structures in the retina that prevent image blur and maintain clarity despite the scarcity of photons. This keeps their perceptions stable when they move quickly. Detecting color at such low light levels also allows them to interpret signals from members of their own species that rely on subtle visual cues. Geckos gain a major survival advantage from these abilities because they can complete essential tasks without waiting for brighter conditions. Certain bats warm their flight muscles in darkness before taking off. This preparation solves a challenge created by their lifestyle. Bat flight demands powerful muscles, but those muscles operate poorly when cold. Because bats spend their days tucked into cool, shaded roosts, their bodies grow chilled as night settles in. Before they can unfurl their wings and move through the darkness with ease, they must first warm the very muscles that power their flight. To do this, they gently increase their metabolic activity, directing energy into the tissues that control each sweep of the wing. Slowly, the warmth builds from within, bringing those muscles up to the temperature they need, so rapid, effortless motion can return. Only then can the bat rise into the night, carried on wings awakened by their own quiet heat. The process is controlled and efficient, preventing unnecessary energy loss. Once warm, the bats are capable of sudden takeoff and precise maneuvers required for hunting insects that begin moving early in the night. Without this warm-up, they would be unable to accelerate quickly enough to capture prey or avoid obstacles. The adjustment also helps them maintain stable movement during initial flight, when air currents around cave entrances or forest openings can be unpredictable. This behavior demonstrates how nocturnal animals must prepare their bodies for tasks that begin immediately rather than building gradually. Several owls use facial discs to funnel sound toward their ears with extreme precision. These discs are not decorative features. They function as acoustic tools shaped to capture sound from specific directions. When an owl adjusts the angle of its facial disc, it changes how sound waves are directed into the ear openings. This allows the bird to focus on certain frequencies and filter out background noise. The benefit is especially important at night when prey animals move silently or remain partially concealed. The ability to determine the exact location of a sound source helps the owl strike accurately even when visibility is limited. Some species strengthen this system with ears positioned at slightly different heights, giving them the ability to compare sound arrival times between sides of the head. This comparison reveals the vertical position of the target. The combination of physical structures and neural processing creates an advanced detection system that allows owls to locate prey hidden under vegetation or snow. By controlling how sound enters their ears, they transform faint noises into reliable information. Various rodents drum their hind legs at night to send warnings through the ground. This drumming behavior provides a communication method that does not rely on vocal signals. The vibrations produced by rapid impacts travel through soil and rock, reaching nearby individuals even when visibility is poor. Many nocturnal rodents live in environments where predators patrol silently, so audible warnings can sometimes arrive too late. Ground signals offer an earlier alert because vibrations often carry farther and remain detectable despite obstacles. Each species develops its own rhythm and intensity patterns, allowing members to distinguish between general alerts and urgent threats. This system also helps maintain spacing between individuals that forage in the same area. By interpreting the signals, rodents can avoid accidental encounters that might lead to competition or conflict. The behavior is particularly useful in open habitats where sound dissipates quickly, but ground vibrations remain clear. It shows how animals adapt communication strategies to the physical properties of their surroundings. Some nocturnal insects communicate through faint vibrations instead of sound. These insects rely on communication channels that remain effective when air movement is minimal and predators are listening for noise. They produce small pulses through leaves, stems, or soil by tapping or shifting their bodies. Other members of the species detect these signals with sensitive organs that respond to mechanical movement. The information carried in the pulses may indicate reproductive readiness, territorial boundaries, or the presence of food sources. Using vibrations rather than sound avoids attracting animals that hunt by following auditory cues. The precision of the signals is striking because even slight changes in rhythm alter the meaning. Many insects engage in extended sequences of pulses to exchange information that would be difficult to convey through short calls. This approach suits their environments because the structures they inhabit transmit vibrations efficiently. It provides a communication method that remains clear even in complete darkness. Certain beetles produce brief glows to attract mates during the darkest hours. These glows are produced through chemical reactions that convert stored energy into visible light. The flashes are short, controlled, and often occur in patterns specific to each species. These patterns allow individuals to identify potential partners without confusion. The timing is crucial because the glows must be bright enough to be seen, but short enough to avoid drawing attention from predators. Nocturnal beetles manage this by activating the reaction only when another beetle is likely to detect it. They may adjust brightness and duration depending on environmental conditions, such as humidity or moonlight. The signals also help reduce failed mating attempts by preventing interactions between species with incompatible patterns. The ability to produce light gives them an advantage in dense habitats where sound or scent might not travel far. Through these glows, beetles maintain communication with remarkable precision. Several rainforest mammals rely on scent trails that disappear by sunrise. These trails are created using chemical markers that degrade quickly when exposed to daylight or heat. The temporary nature of the scent keeps information relevant only for nighttime activity. It also keeps predators from relying on the same pathways hours later, after the night air has shifted and the world has rearranged its scents. For these mammoths, the triads act as quiet guides, showing them where it is safe to walk, where food waits, and how their group is moving through the darkness. Because each trail fades so quickly, they must renew them again and again, night after night. This continual tending turns their movements into something flexible and adaptive, allowing their routes to change with new obstacles, fresh scents, or shifting sources of food. In this way, the landscape becomes a living map they rewrite gently with each passing evening. The system reduces the likelihood of overusing the same paths, which could otherwise attract attention. The markers also help individuals avoid dangerous areas that were recently visited by predators. The adaptation demonstrates how nocturnal species build temporary communication networks suited to the short window of darkness. Certain nocturnal birds sing only at night to mark territory. Their calls serve purposes that daytime song cannot achieve. At night, ambient noise drops significantly, allowing sound to travel farther and remain clearer. This helps the birds establish territory boundaries without coming into direct contact with rivals. Because visibility is low, physical displays are not effective. So, vocal signals become the primary method for asserting ownership. These nighttime songs differ from daytime calls in structure and repetition. They are designed for clarity and recognizability rather than complexity. The timing also matters. Birds often sing when predators are less active, reducing risk. The song warns other individuals to keep distance, while also signaling readiness to mate. The behavior highlights how the constraints of darkness shape communication strategies. Some frogs develop night-only skin patterns that merge with shifting shadows. Their appearance changes gradually after sunset as pigmentation adjusts in response to decreasing light. The patterns enhance camouflage by matching the irregular shapes formed by moonlight filtering through leaves or branches. These frogs rely on this adjustment because many predators hunt by detecting outlines rather than colors. The changing pattern disrupts the frog's shape, making it harder to identify against the background. The transformation does not require large color changes. Instead, it relies on subtle adjustments that refine how the skin reflects available light. The timing is important because the patterns fade as dawn approaches when different threads appear. This nightly cycle supports safe foraging and movement. It also shows how small shifts in appearance can significantly improve survival during nocturnal activity. Certain snakes track prey in darkness by sensing tiny heat signatures. They possess specialized pit organs that respond to infrared radiation. This allows them to detect warm-blooded animals even when visibility is extremely limited. The information they gather includes direction, distance, and relative size. They combine this input with scent and movement cues to build a complete picture of the target. The heat-sensing system works quickly, enabling precise strikes despite the lack of visual detail. It also helps snakes locate animals that remain motionless to avoid detection. The sensitivity is strong enough to identify differences between surfaces warmed by the day and animals that generate their own heat. This capability gives them a significant advantage over prey that relies on darkness for protection. The system also guides them through environments where temperature contrasts shift rapidly. It shows how nocturnal predators use sensory adaptations to navigate and hunt effectively without relying on sight. Some moths evade bats by scattering sonar in unexpected directions. When a bat sends out a pulse of sound, it depends on the returning echo to read the location and movement of prey. Some moths interrupt this process by manipulating how the sound reflects off their bodies. They have specialized scales or wing structures that distort the returning signal. Instead of producing a clean echo that reveals their position, the sound bounces back in multiple directions or fails to produce a coherent pattern. This forces the bat to process conflicting information, which slows its reaction time and can cause it to miss the target entirely. In some cases, the bat interprets the distorted echo as an object moving in a different direction. These moths also change their flight path unpredictably once they detect the first pulse, taking advantage of the bat's brief confusion. The strategy works because bats hunk rapidly and rely on precise timing. If the moth disrupts that timing even slightly, it creates enough error to escape. This interaction shows how nocturnal animals evolve countermeasures that target the sensory systems of their predators directly. Certain nocturnal primates rotate their heads unusually far to scan the night. These primates live in environments where visibility is limited by dense vegetation and low light. Moving silently through the canopy requires awareness of predators, rivals, and potential food sources. To gain that awareness without shifting their bodies, they rely on highly flexible neck joints. This allows them to rotate their heads to angles far beyond what humans can achieve. The adaptation reduces noise because they do not need to reposition their limbs or shift their weight to look in a different direction. It also lets them gather information quickly while remaining hidden. Their eyes are set forward, giving them strong depth perception, but the added head mobility expands their field of view dramatically. This combination helps them judge branch distances, monitor movement behind them, and detect disturbances in the canopy. The flexibility supports communication as well, since they can observe subtle signals from group members without making their presence obvious. Their ability demonstrates how primates adapt structural features of the skeleton to meet the challenges of nocturnal life. A number of spiders hunt by listening for nighttime echoes on their webs. Their webs act as both traps and sensory networks. At night, when visibility is low, spiders rely on the tiny vibrations that travel along the silk. These vibrations carry information about the size, speed, and direction of anything that contacts the web. Some species take this further by using the web to detect movements in the air nearby. When an insect flies close without touching the silk, the web still picks up faint disturbances. The spider interprets these signals through specialized organs in its legs. These orbins respond to tension changes and help the spider differentiate between prey, debris, and environmental noise. At night, the cooler air improves the transmission of these signals, giving the spider more accurate information. This approach allows them to catch insects that try to avoid contact by flying just above the threads. It also warns them of predators that disturb the air as they approach. The web becomes an extended sensory system that compensates for limited vision. Some rodents store seeds at night using memory maps that fade during daylight. These small rodents forage beneath the safety of darkness, moving quietly to avoid the attention of predators.
They gather seeds and hide them in many different places, guided not by long-term memory, but by a gentle, temporary inner map. This map is built from the shapes and shadows that appear only at night, subtle landmarks that guide them through the landscape. But when morning light returns, those nighttime markers soften, shift, or disappear entirely, and with them, the memory of each hidden cache slowly fades, like a dream dissolving with the dawn. The system works because the rodents retrieve most of the seeds before sunrise. Their short-lived memory encourages rapid collection and reduces unnecessary revisits to the same spots. It also prevents predators from following predictable patterns. The fading memory forces the rodents to choose new storage sites each night, spreading their resources across a wider area. This reduces the risk of losing everything to a single competitor or environmental disturbance. The strategy is efficient for species that face high predation pressure and cannot afford to linger in open spaces during the day. Certain bats switch call frequencies to avoid interfering with nearby hunters. When multiple bats forage in the same area, their echolocation calls can overlap. If the calls blend together, each bat receives mixed echoes that are difficult to interpret. To solve this, some species change the frequency of their calls when they detect others nearby. This creates separate acoustic channels. Each bat then receives feedback that matches its own signal, rather than the calls of competitors. The adjustment happens quickly, often within a single hunting pass. It allows multiple individuals to exploit the same insect swarm without interfering with one another. The ability also reduces collisions because bats can track each other's movements clearly once the frequencies diverge. This behavior shows a high level of auditory awareness. The bats must monitor the soundscape continuously and modify their signals without losing accuracy. The result is a cooperative use of shared space built on rapid sensory adjustments rather than direct communication. There are owls that use asymmetrical ears to pinpoint sound in three-dimensional space. These owls have one ear positioned higher than the other. The difference in placement causes sound to arrive at each ear at slightly different times and intensities. The brain compares these differences and uses them to calculate the precise location of the source. This ability works horizontally and vertically, giving the owl accurate spatial awareness, even when prey is hidden under snow, vegetation, or soil. The system is especially valuable at night when visual information is limited. Small mammals produce faint noises as they move, dig, or breathe. The owl analyzes these sounds to determine distance and depth. Once it locks onto the target, it can strike with remarkable accuracy, even if the prey is not visible. The adaptation reduces wasted energy and increases hunting success in challenging environments. It highlights how structural asymmetry becomes a functional advantage under nocturnal conditions. Various nocturnal cats widen and narrow their pupils to catch the faintest movements. Their pupils change size rapidly in response to slight shifts in light. When they widen, they allow more illumination to reach the retina, improving sensitivity. This helps the cats detect subtle motion from prey that attempts to remain still. When they narrow, the pupils reduce glare from bright sources such as reflective surfaces or distant artificial lights. The flexibility provides a balance between sensitivity and clarity. Many nocturnal cats also have reflective layers behind the retina that increase the effectiveness of incoming light. Combined with pupil adjustments, this gives them sharp vision under conditions that would challenge most animals. Their visual control aids in stalking because they can maintain awareness of their surroundings without revealing their position through unnecessary movement. The system works together with their hearing and whisker sensitivity
to create a comprehensive sense of the environment. It supports precise coordination during hunts that unfold in near darkness. Some toads travel long distances at night, guided by humidity gradients. These toads rely on moisture for survival, but water sources can be scattered across their habitats. At night, humidity levels change predictably as temperatures drop. The toads use these gradients to determine direction and locate areas more likely to contain water or food. By sensing subtle shifts in moisture, they choose paths that optimize their hydration and reduce time spent in dry conditions. This method works well because humidity tends to concentrate near vegetation, bodies of water, and sheltered ground. The toads also avoid predators that hunt visually, since movement during daylight would expose them to greater risk. Their ability allows them to cover considerable distances without relying on vision or fixed landmarks. The behavior demonstrates how animals convert environmental patterns into navigational tools that suit their physical needs. Certain nocturnal birds fly lower at night to avoid stronger winds. Wind conditions change significantly after sunset. Higher altitudes often experience faster and less predictable air currents, which makes sustained flight more demanding. To reduce energy expenditure, some birds adjust their flight paths and remain closer to the ground. The lower altitude provides more stable airflow and reduces the effort required to maintain speed. This approach also improves navigation because ground-level features offer better cues than the dark, open sky. Though visibility is limited, these birds compensate with enhanced hearing and sensitivity to pressure changes. Flying lower can also reduce encounters with aerial predators that hunt at night. The combination of energy efficiency and improved safety supports long-distance travel and routine movement between feeding areas. Their strategy shows how even minor adjustments in altitude provide significant advantages under nighttime conditions. Some lizards emerge only on moonless nights to avoid aerial predators. In habitats where predators rely on vision from above, moonlight increases the risk of detection. These lizards reduce that risk by timing their activity to the darkest nights. When the moon is absent, shadows blend together, making it harder for predators to distinguish shapes on the ground. The lizards use this cover to search for food, find mates, and shift between shelters. They navigate by relying on senses that do not require light, such as touch and scent. This timing strategy reduces competition as well, because many daytime and bright night species remain inactive. The behavior also helps them conserve water, because temperatures are lower and evaporation decreases. By restricting movement to the darkest nights, they balance feeding needs with survival pressure. It is a simple yet effective response to a predictable environmental pattern. Certain sharks hunt after sunset, using light-sensing cells along their snouts. These cells detect small changes in brightness that occur when objects move across the water column. Even in near darkness, tiny variations in scattered light help the shark distinguish between open water and the outline of potential prey. The cells respond rapidly, giving the shark immediate feedback as it swims. This system becomes especially effective after sunset because surface light fades unevenly and creates gradients that reveal motion more clearly than during the day. Many prey species attempt to hide by staying still, but the sharks can still track them through these subtle cues. The sensing cells work gently alongside other sources of information. Subtle scents in the water, the quiet pressure changes detected by the lateral line, but they offer the fastest whisper of movement. Sharks weave these signals together with smooth, energy-saving swimming patterns, allowing them to glide through the dark with effortless precision. With every slow, measured stroke, they stay perfectly poised to respond to even the faintest disturbance in the water around them. This adaptation allows them to hunt confidently in conditions that limit the abilities of most predators. It also gives them an advantage over species that rely solely on vision or scent, neither of which updates as quickly as these light-sensing cells. Through this system, they exploit nighttime environments that shift constantly as the water absorbs and reflects dim illumination. Some rodents leave scent marks that glow faintly under moonlight. The glow is not bright enough to attract predators, but is clear to individuals with the visual sensitivity required to detect it. The marks guide the rodents along established routes without relying on memory alone. These animals often travel quickly at night, and the glow provides confirmation that they remain on safe paths. The chemical composition of the marks reflects moonlight differently from surrounding surfaces, creating a contrast that remains visible even when vegetation casts irregular shadows. This strategy allows the rodents to move between feeding sites, shelter, and group members without stopping to reassess their surroundings repeatedly. The marks also help reduce conflict because individuals can recognize trails belonging to different members of the population. The glow fades gradually, which prevents overuse of the same routes. This reduces the chance of predators learning predictable patterns. By combining visual and chemical cues, the rodents maintain efficient navigation under conditions that offer limited light and rapidly changing terrain. The behavior highlights how subtle markers become essential tools for survival in nocturnal environments. Several bats cling together in clusters to conserve heat for night activity. Their bodies lose heat quickly due to the high surface area of their wings and the cold temperatures inside roosts. To counter this, many species form compact groups before they leave to hunt. The shared body warmth raises the temperature of the entire cluster and reduces the energy required for each bat to reach optimal flight condition. This preparation is important because their muscles must operate at specific temperatures to deliver the rapid contractions necessary for sustained flight. The cluster also stabilizes internal temperatures by reducing exposure to drafts that flow through caves or tree hollows. Bats often adjust their positions to maintain contact with as many group members as possible. Clustering provides additional benefits, such as increased protection from predators that may enter the roost and improved transmission of social cues. The behavior demonstrates how social structures evolve not only for cooperation, but also for thermoregulation. It ensures that energy is conserved for hunting, which becomes especially important when prey availability changes from night to night. Certain insects detect polarized moonlight to keep their direction straight. Polarized light forms patterns across the sky that humans cannot see. Some insects have visual receptors capable of interpreting these patterns even when illumination is extremely low. The insects use the orientation of polarized light to maintain a consistent heading over long distances. This ability becomes valuable in habitats where ground-based cues are unreliable or repetitive. For example, sand dunes, grasslands, and open water provide few distinct features at night. Polarized moonlight remains stable enough for navigation even when clouds move or the moon's position shifts. These insects read the direction of polarization and adjust their movement accordingly. This method reduces wandering and helps them locate feeding areas or nesting sites sufficiently. The mechanism also prevents them from circling back over areas they have already visited. By relying on a property of light rather than its brightness, they solve navigational challenges that affect many nocturnal species. The behavior reveals how advanced sensory processing can evolve in animals that appear simple at first glance. Some amphibians rely on nighttime fog to prevent dehydration. Their skin absorbs moisture directly from the environment, making hydration essential for survival. In many regions, fog forms at night when temperatures drop and humidity rises. These amphibians remain active during these periods because the moisture allows them to maintain fluid balance without seeking open water. They position themselves where fog collects most heavily, such as along vegetation or near cool ground surfaces. This behavior reduces the amount of energy they spend traveling to find water and limits exposure to predators. Fog also provides a protective layer that masks their scent, which helps hide them from animals that track prey through chemical cues. The amphibians synchronize feeding and movement with the availability of fog, because their performance declines sharply when dehydration begins. This link between climate patterns and behavior shows how nocturnal life can depend on short windows of favorable conditions. It demonstrates the importance of environmental timing in shaping the habits of moisture-dependent species. Certain snakes heighten their sensitivity to ground vibrations after dark. During the day, these snakes rely highly on visual cues and scent trails. At night, however, temperature changes alter how sound moves through the air and across surfaces. To maintain awareness, the snakes increase their reliance on vibrations that travel through the substrate. Their jawbones and muscles act as sensors that detect these signals. When an animal steps, burrows, or shifts its weight, the vibrations move along the ground. The snake interprets the pattern to determine location and movement. This increased sensitivity helps them locate prey that hides in vegetation or underground. It also warns them of large predators approaching quietly. The adjustment occurs naturally as part of their nightly rhythm. This ability allows snakes to continue hunting effectively when visibility decreases and air temperature halters scent dispersion. The heightened sensory focus shows how nocturnal conditions influence which signals become most valuable for survival. Several forest mammals forage exclusively during certain moon phases. The brightness of the moon affects how well predators can see them. To reduce risk, these mammals time their activity to periods when moonlight is limited or absent. During darker phases, shadows blend together, providing better concealment. They move through the forest using hearing and scent rather than sight. This timing strategy also influences their interactions with other species. Competition may shift depending on which animals choose to forage on the same nights. Some mammals use predictable moon cycles to coordinate group movement or feeding patterns. This reduces confusion and limits unnecessary encounters. The behavior also helps maintain energy balance because individuals avoid periods when they would need to move cautiously under bright moonlight. By adapting to lunar rhythms, these mammals match their activity to environmental conditions that favor survival. Their choices illustrate how predictable celestial cycles can shape daily and monthly routines. Some owls enhance night vision with reflective layers behind their retinas. These layers, known as reflective tissues, bounce incoming light back through the photoreceptor cells. This gives the cells a second opportunity to detect photons that would otherwise be lost. The result is improved sensitivity to low light conditions. The adaptation allows owls to identify movement from small animals that blend into dark surroundings. It also helps them navigate through trees or complex terrain safely. The reflective layers work together with large eyes and wide pupils to maximize available light. The system does not create bright images, but increases the odds of detecting important visual signals. The improved sensitivity is valuable for both hunting and avoiding obstacles. Owls can fly confidently through forests where branches and leaves create irregular lighting patterns. The adaptation supports precise movement and effective tracking of prey. It demonstrates how structural changes in the eye contribute to success in nocturnal environments. Certain frogs modify their calls to match temperature shifts after sunset. As the night cools, sound travels differently through the air. These frogs adjust the pitch, rhythm, and spacing of their calls to maintain clarity. The modification ensures that potential mates or rivals hear the message as intended. Without these subtle adjustments, a frog's call would blur, distort, or fade long before it reached the ears of another. So the frogs listen to their surroundings constantly, tuning their voices to the air and the temperature like tiny night musicians. For species whose ability to find a mate depends entirely on sound, this careful calibration is essential. And because temperature also shapes how their bodies move and how their muscles perform, their adjusted calls naturally fall into the range that their bodies can create with ease. In the quiet of the night, every note becomes both a message and a reflection of the world that shapes it. The strategy helps conserve energy while maintaining effectiveness. By adapting to temperature shifts, the frogs remain active and communicative, even when conditions fluctuate rapidly. The behavior highlights how dynamic nocturnal environments influence not just movement, but also vocal communication. Some nocturnal insects navigate entirely by touch. These insects operate in environments where visual information is unreliable or absent. They use antenna legs and specialized sensory hairs to explore surfaces and detect obstacles. Each movement provides feedback that helps them build an internal representation of their surroundings. This method allows them to travel through dense vegetation, narrow tunnels, or cluttered ground without requiring light. It also helps them locate food by identifying textures or patterns associated with specific resources. Because touch-based navigation does not depend on external illumination, it remains consistent regardless of moonlight or weather. These insects rely on constant sensory input to avoid danger and maintain direction. The approach is slow but highly accurate. It reduces the risk of accidental exposure and helps them remain hidden from predators. The strategy shows how some species prioritize reliability over speed when light is insufficient for safe movement. Several bats reshape their wings mid-flight to dodge unseen obstacles. Their wings are not rigid structures. They contain flexible joints and thin membranes that respond quickly to changes in air pressure. When these bats detect subtle disturbances in airflow, they adjust wing curvature to alter direction without slowing down. The adjustments happen continuously as they fly through cluttered environments such as forests, caves, or narrow canyons. Their ability to sense slight shifts in air movement allows them to predict the presence of branches, walls, or other obstacles before direct contact occurs. This skill is essential because their echolocation pulses do not always reach every surface in time to avoid sudden impacts. By combining sound-based awareness with mechanical feedback from the air, bats maintain high-speed maneuverability and complete darkness. They also reshape their wings to change lift and drag, allowing sharp turns or rapid climbs. This versatility helps them pursue insects that dart unpredictably. The behavior demonstrates a sophisticated coordination between sensory systems and physical structure. It reveals that their wings act as both engines of flight and active sensors that improve navigation in nighttime conditions. Certain rodents whisper ultrasonic calls that predators cannot hear. These rodents communicate in a frequency range far above human hearing. Their calls carry information about nearby threats, food sources, and social interactions. Because many predators lack sensitivity to these high frequencies, the rodents gain a secure communication channel that does not reveal their position. The calls travel short distances, which keeps communication focused on nearby group members rather than broadcasting widely across the environment. This minimizes the chance that a predator with partial sensitivity might intercept the signal. The rodents produce the calls with specialized vocal structures that vibrate at high speed. Their ears contain receptors tuned precisely to the frequencies they generate. These calls support spaced group foraging by allowing individuals to coordinate movement without relying on scent trails that linger too long. They also help maintain awareness in tall grasses or dense vegetation where visibility is limited. By speaking in a channel that predators cannot detect, the rodents protect their safety while still maintaining effective group communication. It is a clear example of nocturnal species exploiting sensory limitations in their surroundings. Some caps use whisker sensitivity to read air currents in complete darkness. Whiskers act as finely tuned sensors that detect subtle changes in airflow. When an object disrupts the smooth movement of air, the whiskers bend slightly. This bending provides information about distance, size, and direction. In the dark, where visual cues disappear, these signals become essential. Cats can approach obstacles without touching them because the air patterns reveal their presence. They can also gauge the movement of prey that attempt to remain silent. The whiskers connect directly to nerve clusters that process information quickly, allowing immediate adjustments in body position. This ensures silent progress through complex environments. The sensitivity also helps during hunting because caps can track movements behind or below them without shifting their heads. Combined with acute hearing and low-light vision, whisker-based sensing gives them a comprehensive model of their surroundings. Their ability shows how mammals integrate multiple sensory systems to maintain precision and efficiency during nocturnal behavior. Many birds migrate at night to avoid overheating in daytime skies. During migration, birds travel long distances and face environmental challenges that vary with altitude and weather. Daytime temperatures often rise quickly, especially over open terrain, such as deserts or agricultural fields. Flying under those conditions increases energy expenditure and raises the risk of overheating. By migrating at night, birds take advantage of cooler temperatures and calmer air. They also reduce exposure to predators that hunt visually. Nighttime flight allows them to maintain steady progress without frequent stops caused by heat stress. The stars, Earth's magnetic field, and wind patterns provide reliable cues for direction. Reduced daytime travel also gives birds more opportunities to feed and rebuild energy reserves when insects or other food sources are most active. The strategy balances physical demands, safety, and resource availability. It demonstrates how birds adapt migration schedules to the predictable differences between day and night. Their success depends on timing that aligns biological needs with environmental patterns. A number of geckos climb smooth surfaces using microscopic hairs that grip even in darkness. These hairs form structures that increase surface contact at extremely small scales. Each hair branches into many finer tips that interact with surfaces through weak electrical forces.
This interaction creates reliable grip without requiring moisture or surface texture. In darkness, geckos depend heavily on this mechanism because visual depth deception becomes limited. Their ability to climb vertically or along ceilings remains consistent regardless of lighting. The hairs reset quickly as they move, allowing continuous contact without sticking permanently. This design prevents debris from accumulating and ensures stable traction even on glass or metal. Geckos adjust foot pressure to control grip strength, which helps them move quietly and efficiently. The system works without noise and without producing vibrations that predators might detect. It allows geckos to search for insects or escape threats through routes inaccessible to many other animals.
Their climbing ability exemplifies how structural adaptations support nocturnal activity. Certain shroop turn nearly transparent at night to avoid detection. The transformation happens as tiny pigments within their bodies drift apart, softening their colors until they nearly vanish into the water around them. This growing transparency makes it difficult for predators to separate the shrimp from the gentle shifting light beneath the surface. And at night, when illumination is scarce and outlines melt into shadow, this quiet trick of fading into the darkness becomes even more effective. Shrimp become especially vulnerable during periods of increased movement, such as feeding or migrating through open water. Turning transparent hides them from both visual hunters and species that detect contrast rather than shape. The transformation reverses when daylight returns, as stronger light requires different strategies for concealment. The behavior supports survival across environments where predators respond to subtle cues. It also allows shrow to explore feeding zones without drawing attention. Their ability to alter visibility demonstrates how animals match their defenses to predictable changes in nighttime conditions. It also highlights the importance of flexible camouflage systems in aquatic habitats. Some fish rise from deeper layers in the after dark to feed safely. These fish remain in deeper water during the day because sunlight exposes them to predators. Darkness provides a safer window for accessing food near the surface. The cool and nighttime temperatures also alter the behavior of prey species, making them easier to capture. Rising at night requires careful timing because the conditions that attract food also attract predators. The fish use cues such as temperature gradients and light levels to determine when to ascend. Once near the surface, they move efficiently through zones rich in plankton or small organisms. Their eyes adapt to low light, giving them an advantage over daytime hunters that struggle to see in darkness. After feeding, they return to deeper layers before sunrise to regain protection. This daily vertical movement supports energy balance while minimizing risk. It shows how animals use depth as a dynamic resource rather than a fixed habitat. Certain crabs forage at night to avoid harmful ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet radiation poses a threat to many crustaceans because it can damage delicate tissues. During the day, exposure increases sharply in shallow water. These crabs reduce the danger by restricting feeding activity to nighttime hours. Darkness eliminates ultraviolet exposure and allows them to move more freely across open ground. They rely on touch and chemical cues to locate food hidden beneath sand or rocks. The strategy also helps them avoid predators that hunt visually during daylight. Nighttime foraging aligns with the behavior of many prey species that become active after sunset, increasing food availability. The crabs use this window to gather energy without risking tissue damage or unwanted attention. Their choice reflects how environmental radiation shapes the timing of basic survival tasks. It illustrates the importance of adapting behavior to physical conditions that shift predictably between day and night. Some mammals rest through the day to save energy for night hunting. Hunting requires bursts of speed, precise coordination, and extended periods of movement. These mammals conserve strength by minimizing daytime activity when high temperatures and increased predator presence create additional stress. Resting allows them to regulate body temperature more effectively and avoid unnecessary expenditure. They become active when darkness offers cooler conditions and less competition. Their senses are tuned for nighttime performance, with improved hearing and smell, compensating for reduced visibility. This schedule also aligns their activity with prey species that emerge after sunset. By resting during the day, they maintain energy reserves for tasks that demand sustained effort. The behavior illustrates how shifting activity patterns optimize survival under environmental pressures. It also shows how mammals structure their routines around predictable cycles that influence food availability and safety. Certain salamanders absorb oxygen through their skin on humid nights. These salamanders rely on skin respiration when environmental moisture levels are high. Humidity keeps their skin moist enough for oxygen to diffuse directly into the bloodstream. On dry nights, the process becomes less efficient, so many salamanders remain sheltered until conditions improve. When humidity rises, they emerge to forage and search for mates. Their reliance on this respiratory method means they must avoid situations that dry their skin, such as windy areas or open ground. The ability allows them to remain active without depending exclusively on lungs, which are less effective during slow movement or when the salamander must remain still. The adaptation suits their habitats, which often include forests, wetlands, or shaded areas where moisture accumulates. It highlights how environmental conditions determine the timing of their activity and the success of their nightly routines. Some insects track the slow rotation of the night sky to stay oriented. These insects rely on the predictable movement of star patterns to maintain direction during long nighttime flights. Their visual systems are sensitive enough to detect the position of bright star groups even when illumination is extremely low. They do not analyze each star individually. Instead, they recognize large-scale patterns that shift across the sky at a steady rate. As the night progresses, the insects compensate for this movement so they can maintain a straight course. This ability is particularly useful in habitats where ground features disappear into darkness, such as open plains, deserts, and expansive grasslands. By following celestial rotation, they avoid circling back over the same terrain, which would waste precious energy. Their reliance on the night sky also helps them move between feeding sites without becoming confused by wind or changing shadows. This strategy ensures accurate navigation when other cues are unreliable. It demonstrates how even small animals use large-scale environmental information to accomplish tasks essential for survival. Certain bats share hunting airspace by dividing it into sound-based territories. When many individuals hunt in the same location, their echolocation signals risk blending together. Overlapping calls can create confusion, making it difficult for each bat to receive clear information about obstacles or prey. To prevent this, certain bats monitor the acoustic space and adjust their positions
to avoid interference. They may fly at different heights, choose separate horizontal lanes, or shift the pitch of their calls so they occupy distinct auditory zones. These adjustments form temporary sound-based territories that change throughout the night as individuals move. The system allows multiple bats to take advantage of the same insect swarms without disrupting one another's tracking. It also reduces the likelihood of mid-air collisions, which become more likely when visibility is limited and hunting pressure is high. The behavior requires continuous awareness because each bat must react to others quickly and accurately.
This shared use of airspace highlights how nocturnal animals coordinate activity through careful management of sensory information rather than physical boundaries. Some mice use zigzag running patterns at night to confuse predators. Predators pursuing prey at night often rely on movement patterns rather than clear visual outlines. A mouse that runs in a predictable straight line becomes easy to track. To counter this, some mice adopt rapid zigzags during escape attempts. Each change in direction forces the predator to adjust trajectory and timing. Even a slight delay can give the mouse the margin needed to reach shelter. The unpredictability of the path reduces the effectiveness of both sight-based and hearing-based tracking because the target no longer produces a stable pattern. These mice also vary the length and speed of each sprint segment, adding another layer of complexity for the pursuer. The behavior proves especially useful in dense vegetation, where obstacles amplify the predator's difficulty in predicting movement. This method does not require great strength or speed. Instead, it relies on coordination and timing. The strategy reveals how small mammals compensate for physical disadvantages by introducing confusion into the predator's decision-making process. Certain owls coordinate hunting success with changing lunar cycles. Moonlight alters how prey behave. On bright nights, many prey species reduce movement to avoid detection. In response, some owls adjust their hunting strategies according to lunar phase. During brighter periods, they may shift location to areas with heavier cover or perch farther from open ground. They may also begin hunting earlier or later to match periods of increased prey activity. On darker nights, these same owls expand their search range because prey venture out more confidently. The owls take advantage of this by scanning larger territories. Some species modify their flight height depending on how moonlight falls across the habitat. By adjusting their approach to match lunar brightness, the owls maintain efficiency regardless of how the environment changes. This synchronized behavior shows how nocturnal predators must understand and adapt to recurring celestial patterns that influence prey movement, visibility, and risk. Some amphibians glow faintly under moonlight due to natural pigments. These pigments interact with ultraviolet components in moonlight, producing a subtle glow visible at close range. The glow does not illuminate the environment. Instead, it serves as a controlled form of communication among members of the same species. It helps individuals identify potential mates or group members without relying on vocalizations that might attract predators. Because the effect appears only under dim lighting conditions, the glow remains hidden from daytime visual hunters. It also melts seamlessly into the darkness, making it harder for larger predators to detect its presence. Even the gentle pattern of its glow can vary from one individual to another, offering subtle clues about health or readiness to mate. In places where thick vegetation and shifting shadows make sight unreliable, this soft illumination becomes a quiet language of its own, a way for amphibians to read social signals without stepping into danger or revealing themselves more than they must.
It highlights how subtle physiological traits support survival in low-light habitats. Certain moths detect flower scents across long nighttime distances. These moths rely on their antennae, which contain receptors capable of detecting incredibly low concentrations of scent molecules. Flowers that bloom at night release stronger or more distinctive scents to attract these pollinators. The moths interpret the changing intensity of odor as they fly, adjusting direction to move toward the source. This method allows them to find resources even in complete darkness. Their ability to detect scent gradients gives them an advantage over animals that rely on sight, especially when moonlight is weak or obstructed. Some moths can follow a single scent trail for considerable distances across varied terrain. Once they reach the flower, they use a combination of touch and smell to locate nectar. The process supports both the moths and the plants they pollinate. It demonstrates how chemical communication becomes a vital tool in nocturnal ecosystems, enabling efficient foraging without visual cues. Some predators rely more on sound than sight after the sun sets. At night, visual signals weaken and shadows can distort the outline of prey. Many nocturnal predators adapt by shifting attention to auditory cues. They listen for rustling leaves, breaking twigs, or the soft scrape of movement across soil. Their hearing systems amplify subtle noises and filter irrelevant background sounds. This shift in sensory priority influences how they hunt. Rather than relying on vision to track prey, they move slowly and pause frequently to analyze sound patterns. They adjust their body posture to minimize noise and avoid masking important cues. The strategy allows them to detect prey that tries to freeze in place to avoid detection. It also helps them navigate terrain where visibility is unreliable. By relying on sound, these predators maintain hunting efficiency even when darkness removes visual clarity. Their approach shows how sensory flexibility becomes essential for success in nocturnal environments. Certain rodents navigate by recalling star patterns from previous nights. These rodents develop short-term memories of star clusters visible above their territory. When they emerge after sunset, they compare the current sky to their stored mental patterns. This allows them to maintain direction across areas that lack stable landmarks. The method works because star formations appear relatively constant over short intervals. The rodents do not rely on exact star locations. Instead, they recognize general arrangements that correspond to particular travel routes. This celestial reference helps them move between food sources and shelter while avoiding unnecessary wandering. The behavior becomes especially important during nights with minimal moonlight, when ground cues disappear entirely. Their ability shows that navigation in small mammals can extend beyond scent and terrain, incorporating large-scale environmental information that remains consistent even when local conditions shift. Some birds lower their heart rate during night flights to conserve energy. Long-distance migration demands efficient energy use. By reducing heart rate, birds decrease oxygen consumption and extend the time they can remain aloft without feeding. The cooler nighttime temperatures assist this process because heat loss becomes easier to manage. Lower body temperature reduces metabolic demand, allowing the slower heart rate to support sustained flight. Birds that travel at night also encounter fewer predators and more stable wind patterns, which helps maintain altitude with less effort. The physiological adjustment must remain precise, because the birds still need enough power to adjust position or react to sudden changes in air currents.
This balance demonstrates how tightly controlled internal processes support long journeys. The strategy ensures that energy is conserved for critical stages of migration, such as crossing open water or reaching stopover sites with adequate resources. Certain insects mimic predator noises at night to scare rivals. These insects produce sounds that resemble the calls or movement patterns of predators. Rivals interpret these signals as a direct threat and retreat from feeding areas or potential mates. The mimicry works because limited visibility at night forces animals to rely heavily on sound for information. By exploiting this dependence, the mimicking insects gain control over territory without engaging in physical fights. They adjust the rhythm and intensity to trigger the appropriate level of alarm. The tactic is particularly effective in dense environments where sound bounces unpredictably, increasing the apparent size or speed of the supposed predator. This strategy allows the insects to conserve energy while maintaining access to resources. It is a sophisticated use of environmental limitations to influence the behavior of others in the ecosystem. Some owls hover silently near prey, using slow, controlled wind beats. Hovering requires an unusual degree of stability for a bird that hunts at night. These owls achieve it by using broad wings that generate lift even at low speeds. Instead of flapping quickly, they move their wings in slow, deliberate strokes that reduce noise and minimize turbulence. The motion allows them to remain nearly motionless in the air while they observe prey hidden beneath vegetation. Their hovering ability becomes particularly useful in areas where small mammals pause frequently before moving again. The owl must wait without revealing its position, and hovering gives it that advantage. Sound control is essential because prey rely on hearing rather than sight to detect danger at night. The owl's feathers reduce vibration and channel air smoothly, helping it maintain a stable position. Hovering also allows time for the owl to make small adjustments based on sound or movement cues. When the moment arrives, the owl drops swiftly and silently, completing a strike that depends on accuracy and timing. The technique shows how nocturnal predators refine flight mechanics to solve the challenges of low-light hunting. Certain bats coordinate group hunts with brief mid-air contacts. These calls are short, high-frequency signals produced while flying quickly through open space. The calls do not reveal hunting locations to predators, but they allow nearby bats to gauge each other's positions. Group hunting becomes more effective when individuals avoid duplicating effort or chasing the same prey. The bats interpret the calls to maintain spacing and determine which sections of the foraging area are already being covered. This coordination reduces collision risk and improves coverage of insect swarms that shift unpredictably. The calls are distinct from echolocation pulses and do not interfere with the bat's ability to read returning echoes. They function as status updates rather than navigation tools. When food availability declines, the calls become more frequent as bats are just territory boundaries. The behavior demonstrates social awareness and rapid decision-making in fast-moving animals. It also reveals how communication adapts to the limitations of night flight, where visibility is limited and constant recalibration is essential. Several rodents form colonies that function mainly during night hours. These colonies shape their entire rhythm around the night, saving most of their movement, feeding, and quiet exchanges for the hours after sunset. In darkness, they are safer, hidden from predators that depend on sight to hunt. Within this shadowed world, they communicate through scent, gentle touches, and low, subtle sounds. A delicate language that keeps the colony connected even when the night is at its deepest. They leave their shelters in waves, allowing each group to gather resources without overwhelming the area. The colony structure also helps individuals defend shared territory by responding collectively to threats. At night, when sounds carry farther, they communicate using signals adapted for muted environments. During daylight, the colony remains mostly inactive, conserving energy and avoiding heat stress. Members rest in interconnected burrows or nests that maintain stable temperatures. The rhythm of nighttime activity shapes social interactions and influences how resources are shared. The behavior illustrates how rodents adapt group living to nocturnal pressures, balancing cooperation with the need for stealth and efficiency in the dark. Certain birds adjust their night vision by changing pupil size rapidly. These birds encounter dramatic shifts in available light as clouds move, moonlight shifts, or dense vegetation blocks the sky. To adapt, they widen or narrow their pupils within seconds. A wider pupil allows more light to enter the eye, improving sensitivity in near darkness. When the environment brightens unexpectedly, a narrower pupil prevents glare and maintains clarity. This control helps them avoid obstacles, track prey, and maintain direction during flight. Rapid pupil adjustment is essential because nighttime conditions change much faster than daytime ones. Their retinas also contain cells designed for low light detection, but without pupil control, those cells would receive inconsistent illumination. The flexibility allows the birds to fly through forests, coastal areas, and open fields with equal precision. The system demonstrates how visual sensitivity and physical adaptation work together to support nocturnal behavior. It also helps explain why some species succeed in environments too variable for strict daytime hunters. Some amphibians travel to breeding sites only during ideal night temperatures. Breeding migrations often require amphibians to cross exposed terrain, where dehydration or predation becomes a significant risk. To minimize these dangers, they begin moving only when nighttime temperatures create safe conditions. Warm nights slow moisture loss from their skin and make travel more efficient. Cooler nights can be equally favorable if humidity remains high. The amphibians sense subtle atmospheric changes and time their departure accordingly. This ensures they reach breeding ponds or streams with minimal energy expenditure. They often travel in groups, taking advantage of environmental cues that align their movements. By restricting travel to specific temperature windows, they protect themselves from predators that remain less active during those periods. The behavior reveals how finely tuned amphibian survival strategies are, relying on environmental stability rather than fixed schedules. It highlights the importance of climate patterns in shaping nighttime rituals and reproductive success. Certain insects depend exclusively on night-blooming plants. These insects time their feeding to match the opening cycles of flowers that release nectar only after sunset. The plants rely on nocturnal pollinators, creating a mutual relationship that functions entirely in darkness. The insects locate the flowers using scent trails that become stronger when the blossoms open. They may also detect small changes in temperature around the flowers caused by chemical activity during blooming. Because these plants do not compete for daytime pollinators, they invest heavily in nighttime signaling. The insects benefit from reduced competition for nectar, since few other species specialize in nocturnal feeding. This dependency shapes their physical features, such as elongated mouthparts and enhanced scent detection. By aligning their schedules with the flowers,
The insects maintain a reliable food source and support plant reproduction. This relationship shows how nocturnal ecosystems contain their own specialized networks, independent from daytime cycles. Some mammals memorize nighttime scent landmarks that do not exist during the day. Moisture, temperature, and wind patterns at night create scent distributions that change dramatically by morning. These mammals take advantage of this by learning the nighttime arrangement of odor cues along their routes. They use these temporary landmarks to navigate between shelters, feeding areas, and meeting points. During the day, sunlight alters or removes these scents, making them unreliable.
The mammals update their memory frequently because nighttime scent patterns can shift with weather changes. This navigation system reduces dependence on visual cues and allows them to move confidently even when visibility is extremely low. It also helps them avoid areas where predators have recently passed, since those scents remain detectable for a limited time. The behavior demonstrates how animals build flexible maps based on short-lived environmental information unique to nighttime conditions. Certain spiders increase hunting activity when moonlight is dim. Bright moonlight improves visibility for many predators, increasing risk for spiders that hunt in open areas. In response, some spider species become most active during nights when moonlight is weak or clouds reduce illumination. Reduced visibility benefits them because prey animals let their guard down and move more freely. Dim light also makes the spiders themselves harder to detect. They position their webs or hunting routes where low light levels offer maximum advantage. Their movements become more confident as they rely on vibration and touch rather than sight. By aligning peak activity with low illumination, the spiders gain better access to prey while avoiding predators that hunt visually. This strategy demonstrates how nocturnal species link behavior to predictable variations in moonlight. Some snakes wait underground until the temperature drops each night. These snakes avoid emerging during daylight because high temperatures increase dehydration risk and make them more visible to predators. By staying underground, they remain insulated from heat. When nighttime arrives and the air cools, they surface to hunt. Cooler temperatures slow the movements of many prey species, giving the snakes a more favorable chance of success. Underground waiting also protects them from birds and mammals that hunt visually. Once conditions align with their preferred temperature range, the snakes begin searching for food using scent trails, ground vibrations, and heat-based cues. This timing strategy conserves energy and reduces exposure to danger. It illustrates how nocturnal predation depends on patience and environmental awareness rather than constant activity. Certain geckos detect polarized moonlight that humans cannot perceive. Polarized light occurs when waves of light align in a single orientation. Moonlight reflects off surfaces in ways that create predictable polarization patterns across the landscape. These geckos possess visual receptors tuned to this information, giving them a navigational tool invisible to humans. They use polarized patterns to maintain straight paths while moving across uneven ground. The patterns help differentiate open areas from vegetation and improve orientation in habitats where landmarks disappear in darkness. The ability becomes especially valuable when clouds obscure the sky, as polarization can remain detectable even when brightness declines. By integrating this information with their other senses, geckos navigate with precision that seems impossible under such low light conditions. The adaptation shows how nocturnal species use hidden properties of the environment to overcome limitations that affect other animals. Some bats memorize flight paths to avoid obstacles in complete darkness.
These bats find environments where tunnels, branches, and tight spaces leave very little room for error. Although echolocation gives them real-time feedback, it cannot always capture every detail of a complex space during high-speed flight. To compensate, these bats develop long-term spatial memories of the routes they travel most frequently. They learn the location of narrow openings, abrupt turns, and uneven surfaces. Once internalized, the memory reduces the cognitive load on echolocation because the bat already anticipates where obstacles will appear. This improves efficiency and decreases the risk of collision. Memorized routes also allow the bat to move silently through familiar territory by limiting the number of calls it must produce. Producing fewer calls lowers the chance of alerting prey or competitors. This skill becomes especially valuable inside caves or dense forests, where sound can bounce unpredictably. By combining memory and echolocation, the bats create a dependable navigation system that protects them during rapid flight in complete darkness. Their ability demonstrates that nocturnal species often rely on multiple layers of information to survive challenging environments. Several rodents retreat to cool burrows and emerge only at night.
These rodents live in a world where the daytime heat can be harsh and unforgiving, a heat that drains moisture and leaves them vulnerable to predators searching by sight. So they retreat into the cool safety of their burrows, where the temperature stays steady and gentle. Down in those sheltered chambers, they can rest without worry, tend to themselves, and tuck away bits of food. The burrow becomes a quiet refuge, a place where the day's dangers fade and life can continue in peace. Once nighttime arrives, they emerge to forage, taking advantage of cooler air and decreased predator activity. Their behavior depends on careful timing. They begin searching for food only when surface temperatures fall to levels that protect their bodies from rapid moisture loss. Nighttime movement also reduces competition because many larger animals remain inactive after sunset. The rodents navigate using scent trails, memory, and low-intensity sounds that do not attract unwanted attention.
Their burrow systems often contain multiple entrances, allowing quick retreats if danger appears. This strategy shows how shelter and schedule become intertwined in nocturnal survival. By relying on cool underground environments by day and active foraging by night, these rodents maintain energy balance while minimizing exposure to predators and harsh conditions. Certain birds locate food by sensing subtle air pressure shifts at night. These birds operate in darkness where visual cues are limited. To detect prey, they rely on sensitive receptors that measure changes in air pressure caused by movement. When an insect beats its wings or when a small mammal shifts position, it creates brief disturbances in the surrounding air. The birds interpret these disturbances to determine direction and distance. Their sensitivity allows them to detect animals hidden beneath leaves or moving quietly through foliage. This ability complements their hearing and low-light vision, creating a multi-layered detection system that works effectively at night. The birds use the combined information to adjust flight speed, angle, and approach path. Air pressure sensitivity offers a significant advantage when hunting in cluttered environments where echoes and shadows can create uncertainty. It also helps them maintain awareness of wind patterns that change throughout the night. By reading air movement with such precision, these birds find prey that many predators would overlook. Their skill highlights how nocturnal species refine sensory abilities that daytime animals rarely need. Some insects amplify faint nighttime sounds through complex hearing organs. These insects live in environments where communication and predator detection depend heavily on sound. Their hearing organs include membranes, internal chambers, and specialized structures that enhance weak signals. At night,
When air is cooler and ambient noise is reduced, the insects use these structures to gather acoustic information that would otherwise be too faint to detect. They can identify the wind beats of rivals, the approach of predators, or the movement of potential mates. The amplification also allows them to interpret patterns in the soundscape that change with humidity, wind direction, and vegetation density. The insects adjust their behavior according to what they hear. They may move to new locations, alter signaling patterns, or remain still to avoid detection. Their ability shows that advanced auditory processing is not limited to larger animals. It demonstrates how small nocturnal species rely on precise sensory systems to function effectively in dark environments where vision offers limited support. Certain frogs glow softly under starlight due to natural fluorescence. This fluorescence results from pigments in their skin that absorb certain wavelengths of light and release them as faint illumination. The glow is subtle but visible to other frogs, allowing communication at close range without relying on sound. It helps frogs recognize individuals, gauge readiness for mating, or maintain spacing during group activity. The glow becomes more apparent under starlight because the absence of stronger light sources allows the fluorescence to stand out. Predators that hunt using vision may overlook the glow because it blends into the low light of nighttime habitats. The phenomenon provides a communication method that remains safe and efficient. It also aids frogs that live in densely vegetated areas where shadows often distort outlines. By using fluorescence, they avoid producing vocal signals that could attract predators or competitors. This adaptation highlights how nocturnal species find creative ways to communicate under restrictive conditions. Some mammals reduce body temperature at night to conserve energy. These mammals face fluctuating nighttime food availability and must stretch their energy reserves. By lowering body temperature, they decrease metabolic demand and slow energy consumption. This strategy allows them to remain active for longer periods without needing constant feeding. The temperature drop does not impair their ability to respond to danger or forage. Instead, it creates an efficient balance between alertness and energy conservation. The mammals adjust movement speed, breathing rate, and muscle activity to match their reduced metabolism. They also choose sheltered locations where temperature loss remains controlled. When they prepare to hunt or explore, they raise body temperature gradually to restore full performance. This process requires careful timing because sudden temperature changes can be dangerous. Their ability shows how internal regulation becomes a key tool for survival in habitats where nighttime food resources vary dramatically. Certain reptiles rely on warm rocks after dark to regulate metabolism. These reptiles cannot generate enough internal heat to support nighttime activity on their own. During the day, rocks absorb sunlight and store heat. After sunset, these reptiles settle onto warm stones, letting the heat held from the day seep slowly into their bodies. That lingering warmth helps them digest their meals, stay aware of the world around them, and move with ease when they need to. Without it, their muscles would cool too quickly, leaving them sluggish in the darkness. So they choose their resting places carefully, favoring rocks shaped and positioned just right, the ones that cradle the day's warmth and release it softly through the night. This behavior allows them to remain active in conditions that would otherwise force them into shelter. It also influences where they establish territories, because access to warm surfaces becomes a critical resource. Their reliance on stored heat demonstrates how behavioral choices can compensate for physiological limitations in nocturnal environments.
Some fish follow chemical plumes that drift through reefs at night. Reef environments change significantly after sunset. Many animals release chemical signals that disperse through the water. These signals come from feeding activity, movement, or reproductive processes. The fish interpret the plumes to locate food or potential mates. They adjust swimming patterns to follow the gradient of increasing concentration. Nighttime currents and temperature differences influence how the plumes spread. The fish must constantly readjust direction to stay within the most informative part of the chemical trail. This technique allows them to navigate complex reef structures without relying on sight. It also helps them locate organisms hidden among corals or in narrow crevices. The behavior demonstrates how aquatic species use chemical information to overcome visibility limitations in nocturnal habitats. Certain spiders rebuild their webs to match shifting conditions. Nighttime humidity, insect activity, and wind patterns change from evening to evening. Spiders respond by dismantling old webs and constructing new ones that reflect the current conditions. They adjust thread spacing, structural angles, and anchoring points to optimize prey capture for that particular night. Fresh silk offers better elasticity and stickiness, increasing the chances of securing fast-moving insects. Rebuilding the web also allows the spider to remove damage caused by weather or predator encounters. The process requires energy, but the gains in efficiency often outweigh the cost. Tailoring the web to nightly conditions improves success rates and reduces wasted effort. This adaptability demonstrates how spiders constantly evaluate their environment and adjust structures to meet the specific challenges of nocturnal prey capture. Some owls detect prey beneath snow by reading sound through layers of ice. These owls hunt in winter landscapes where prey animals move beneath snowpack. Sound waves travel differently through snow than through air, but the owls interpret these variations to locate hidden targets. They listen for faint movements such as digging, scratching, or shifting. The snow filters and distorts sound, yet the owls identify patterns that indicate distance and depth. Their facial structures help funnel sound to the ears, improving accuracy. Once the owl pinpoints the position, it adjusts angle and trajectory to strike through the snow. The owl must judge depth carefully because miscalculations waste energy. The ability to read sound through snow allows the owl to hunt effectively in conditions where many predators struggle. It shows how specialized hearing compensates for visual limitations during harsh winter nights. Several bats fly through caves with precise spatial memory. These bats navigate through cave systems that contain tight passages, uneven walls, sudden drops, and chambers of varying sizes. Although echolocation helps them avoid immediate obstacles, it cannot provide long-term knowledge of complex routes. To solve this, the bats memorize the layout of the caves they use frequently. They learn where passages narrow, where air currents shift, and where chambers open suddenly into larger spaces. This memory allows them to fly confidently at high speeds without depending entirely on sound reflections. It also helps them return to preferred roosts, locate safe resting ledges, and avoid areas that contain predators or unstable surfaces. When traveling with groups, experienced individuals lead the way through familiar routes that newcomers later learn. The combination of spatial memory and auditory feedback creates a highly efficient navigation system that supports survival in environments where darkness is absolute and detail is critical. Their ability demonstrates how memory becomes just as important as sensory input in challenging nocturnal habitats.
Certain rodents share communal nests for nighttime safety. These rodents live in environments where nighttime predators rely on sound and movement to locate prey. By gathering in groups within shared nests, the rodents gain warmth, protection, and early warning advantages. Communal nesting allows individuals to benefit from the vigilance of others. When one rodent detects danger, the entire group reacts quickly. The shared space also helps them conserve heat during cold nights, reducing the energy required to maintain body temperature. Strong social bonds develop through grooming and cooperative nesting behavior, which improves coordination during nightly activities.
The nests often include multiple exit points that allow rapid escape if a predator approaches. During the night, group members take turns emerging to forage, reducing overall exposure. This system balances social cooperation with individual survival. It shows how group living becomes an effective strategy for species that face constant nighttime threats. Some birds steer long night migrations using Earth's magnetic inclination. These birds migrate across continents under conditions where visual cues are limited or unreliable. They rely on receptors that detect the angle at which Earth's magnetic field enters the ground. This angle varies predictably with latitude, giving the birds a built-in mapping system. By sensing magnetic inclination, they determine whether they need to move north or south and how far they are from their target region. This method remains reliable even when clouds obscure stars or weather disrupts other navigational cues. The birds combine magnetic information with wind direction, internal timing, and memory of past routes. They adjust their flight path continuously to remain on course during long migrations. This ability prevents disorientation and reduces energy waste. It also allows them to travel at night when temperatures are lower and predators are fewer. The behavior reveals how animals integrate geophysical information into large-scale movement patterns. Certain insects hide their daytime colors and reveal darker patterns after sunset. These insects possess pigments that change appearance based on light levels and body chemistry. During the day, they display bright colors used for warning or camouflage against well-lit backgrounds. After sunset, those same colors would attract unwanted attention. To avoid this, the insects suppress reflective pigments and reveal darker tones that blend more effectively with nighttime surroundings. The transition happens gradually as light fades and temperature shifts. Once the darker pattern emerges, the insects become far harder to detect by predators that rely on contrast to identify prey. The change also supports movement and feeding during hours when shadows distort shape and depth. This dynamic coloration allows the insects to function efficiently under vastly different lighting conditions without needing to alter behavior. It demonstrates how flexible physiology supports survival in environments that shift between bright and dark extremes. Some frogs depend on nighttime dew for hydration. In regions where rainfall is limited, these frogs rely on moisture that forms on plants and soil surfaces during cool nights. Their skin absorbs water directly, allowing them to hydrate without seeking ponds or streams. Dew provides a reliable resource because it appears consistently under the right temperature and humidity conditions. The frogs time their activity to coincide with dew formation, emerging from shelters when moisture levels peak. They move slowly and remain close to vegetation to maximize the amount of dew they encounter. This behavior reduces dehydration risk during the following day. It also influences where they choose to live, because certain plants collect more dew than others. By depending on dew, the frogs avoid competition with animals that require larger water sources. The strategy allows survival in environments that experience long, dry periods. Certain mammals forage according to humidity levels that change through the night. Humidity affects scent dispersion, prey activity, and body temperature regulation. These mammals track humidity changes closely and adjust timing and location of foraging accordingly. Higher humidity helps preserve moisture in their bodies and improves scent detection, making it easier to locate food. Lower humidity, often manipulation, increase dehydration risk or reduced prey movement. The mammals respond by shifting routes or pausing activity. They may target valleys, shaded areas, or vegetation-rich zones where humidity remains stable. Their behavior aligns with predictable atmospheric cycles that influence how safe and efficient nighttime foraging becomes. By moving in harmony with shifting humidity, these animals conserve their energy and slip quietly beneath the notice of predators that depend on dry conditions to sense their prey. Their behavior reveals a deep, instinctive connection to the rhythms of their environment, a quiet dialogue between body and atmosphere. And some reptiles wait patiently for the heat of day to fade, emerging only when the night finally cools the world to safer, softer temperatures. Daytime heat can be dangerous for reptiles, which depend on external sources to regulate body temperature. High temperatures raise the risk of overheating and dehydration. To avoid this, these reptiles wait until the evening cools to a manageable range. Once conditions are safe, they begin searching for food, mates, or shelter. They monitor temperature changes through direct contact with the ground and surrounding air. This helps them determine the exact moment when activity becomes safe. Their nighttime exploration benefits them by reducing encounters with predators that hunt during the day. It also allows them to use cooler surfaces that protect their bodies from thermal stress. By linking movement to temperature thresholds, the reptiles maintain physiological stability while still fulfilling essential tasks. Certain fish rise toward the surface only under starlight. Starlight provides enough illumination for navigation without revealing the fish to predators that hunt visually. These fish spend the day in deeper, darker water where they remain protected. After sunset, when light levels drop to a specific range, they ascend to feed on plankton, or small organisms that gather near the surface. The timing depends on the balance between visibility and safety. Too much light increases the risk of predation. Too little light reduces the effectiveness of their own sensory systems. The fish monitor ambient brightness and begin ascending only when conditions fall within the safe zone. Once near the surface, they feed quickly and return to deeper layers before dawn. This behavior highlights how subtle variations in light influence habitat use and feeding patterns in nocturnal aquatic species. Some insects time their emergence to the darkest part of night. These insects avoid predators by emerging when visibility reaches its lowest point. They monitor environmental cues such as temperature, humidity, and decreasing light intensity. When conditions align, they burst from the soil, leaf litter, or protective cases. Emerging during peak darkness reduces detection by birds, mammals, and other insects that rely on sight. It also helps synchronize mating behavior, ensuring that individuals find partners at the same time.
The timing may coincide with periods when predators are least active or when environmental conditions best support movement. Because this window can be brief, the insects must respond quickly to changing conditions. The strategy shows how precise timing becomes critical for survival in nocturnal ecosystems. Certain snakes rely heavily on tongue flicking at night to track scent trails. Tongue flicking collects chemical particles from the air and ground. The snake transfers these particles to specialized organs that interpret scent information. At night, when visibility is low, scent becomes the most reliable way to locate prey, identify territory boundaries, or avoid predators.
The snakes flick their tongues more frequently after sunset because cooler temperatures preserve scent trails longer and reduce evaporation. They analyze differences in concentration to determine direction and proximity of targets. This method allows them to follow trails through dense vegetation, across open soil, or along rocks. The behavior becomes especially important when prey species move silently or hide in burrows. By depending on chemical cues rather than sight, the snakes maintain accurate navigation even in total darkness. The strategy highlights how sensory emphasis changes according to environmental demands. Some bats follow the sound of rivers through darkness to locate feeding areas. These bats rely on auditory cues that travel long distances across the landscape. Flowing water produces a steady acoustic signature that remains constant even when wind shifts or vegetation rustles. At night, when visual markers vanish, the bats use the sound of the river as a directional anchor. The water source often attracts insects, creating predictable feeding opportunities. By orienting themselves toward the steady noise, the bats can fly directly to areas where prey density is higher. The river also helps them maintain orientation when navigating unfamiliar terrain. As they approach, subtle changes in the sound reveal bends, open banks, or narrow channels. The information combines with their echolocation, giving them a layered understanding of the environment. This strategy allows them to conserve energy by reducing time spent searching randomly. It also helps them return to reliable feeding grounds night after night without relying on visual landmarks. The behavior illustrates how animals transform natural background noise into a dependable navigational tool. Certain rodents move across soft soil at night to mask their footsteps. These rodents inhabit areas where predators listen for subtle ground-based cues. Hard surfaces create distinct sounds that carry easily and still nighttime air. To reduce detection risk, the rodents choose paths covered with loose soil, leaf litter, or sand. The softer material absorbs sound and muffles vibration. This allows them to travel between feeding sites without alerting predators that rely heavily on hearing. The rodents also adjust stride length and movement speed to further minimize noise. Their whiskers and paws help them judge the softness of the ground before committing to a route. By choosing terrain that suppresses their presence, they decrease exposure during vulnerable nighttime hours. The strategy also helps them approach food silently, reducing competition with other nocturnal species. It demonstrates how subtle choices in movement and route selection become critical in ecosystems where sound carries farther than light. Some birds adjust migration routes based on stable night winds. Nighttime atmospheric conditions differ significantly from daytime patterns. Certain migrants use these differences to their advantage by tracking wind stability across large regions. They detect changes in air pressure, direction, and temperature as they fly. When they encounter stable winds that require less energy to maintain speed, they shift their route to follow the favorable corridor.
This flexibility allows them to conserve energy during long journeys that span continents. The birds update their path continuously, choosing altitudes where wind patterns remain predictable. By migrating at night, they avoid thermal turbulence caused by daytime heating. They also reduce the risk of overheating and limit exposure to visual predators. Their success depends on sensing both large-scale atmospheric cues and subtle local variations.
This combination of awareness and adaptability demonstrates how nocturnal migration requires constant evaluation rather than rigid navigation. Certain insects synchronize wing beats with ambient vibrations to stay hidden. These insects live in environments where predators detect movement through vibrations carried by plants, soil, or air. To avoid revealing their position, the insects coordinate wing beats with background vibrations created by wind, water, or other insects. By matching their movements to existing noise, they become more difficult to distinguish. The synchronization reduces contrast between their activity and the surrounding environment. This requires highly sensitive receptors that monitor vibration patterns in real time. When vibrations shift, the insects adjust immediately. This skill allows them to feed, communicate, and move without drawing attention. The method becomes especially important at night when predators rely on non-visual cues. By blending their activity into ambient rhythms, the insects exploit natural cover that darkness alone cannot provide. It represents a refined form of camouflage based on timing rather than appearance. Some amphibians shift skin color slightly after dark to blend into cooler tones. These amphibians face predators that detect contrast rather than detail. When nighttime temperatures drop, the environment takes on cooler visual tones. The amphibians adjust pigment distribution within their skin to match these changes. The shift is subtle but effective. It reduces the visibility of their outline against rocks, soil, or vegetation. The adjustment does not produce dramatic color changes. Instead, it fine-tunes how their skin reflects available light. This process responds quickly to environmental cues such as humidity, temperature, and background coloration. By adapting appearance each night, the amphibians maintain camouflage in habitats that undergo rapid visual changes as conditions shift. This improves their ability to forage, travel, or remain still while avoiding detection. The behavior demonstrates how small physiological adjustments support survival in dynamic nocturnal landscapes. Certain mammals communicate with low-frequency night calls that travel long distances. These mammals rely on calls that vibrate through ground and air at frequencies less likely to be absorbed or scattered. Low-frequency sounds travel farther at night due to cooler, denser air. This allows individuals to coordinate movement, warn group members, or locate mates across wide territories. The calls remain subtle enough to avoid attracting predators that focus on higher frequencies. Each call carries information about identity, urgency, or location. These mammals also read the faint echoes returning from nearby surfaces, using those gentle reflections to sense distance in the dark. When night settles in and visibility drops, when humidity softens and shifts their scent trails, communication becomes their quiet lifeline. Through low-frequency calls that travel smoothly through the darkness, they stay connected, maintaining their social bonds and their awareness, even in places where every other signal seems to fade. The behavior shows how nocturnal animals match communication style to atmospheric conditions. Some spiders detect predators through faint nighttime ground tremors. These spiders live in habitats where predators approach silently. Vision offers limited protection at night, so the spiders rely on sensitive receptors in their legs that detect ground vibrations.
Even small disturbances, such as a footstep, wing flutter, or shifting soil, create tremors that travel along the surface.
The spiders interpret these signals to determine size, distance, and direction of the threat. The ability allows them to retreat into burrows, freeze in place, or reposition before the predator draws near. The sensitivity becomes especially valuable at night, when environmental noise is reduced. Trauma detection gives them a warning system that does not depend on sight or sound. The behavior highlights how nocturnal species use physical cues transmitted through the ground to survive. Certain fish release pheromones only after sunset to attract mates. These fish time pheromone release to coincide with conditions that maximize effectiveness. After sunset, water cools and currents slow, allowing chemical signals to disperse predictably. The reduced light also protects them from predators that would detect increased activity during mating displays. By releasing pheromones at night, the fish attract mates without revealing their position to visual hunters.
The timing also ensures that only individuals active during the appropriate window detect the signal. The pheromones carry information about reproductive readiness and territory. Fish follow the gradient of increasing concentration to locate partners. The strategy coordinates mating behavior across the population while minimizing risk. It shows how chemical communication adapts to environmental conditions that favor successful reproduction. Some reptiles navigate nighttime terrain by sensing subtle heat patterns on the ground. These reptiles use specialized receptors that measure differences in temperature across the surfaces they travel. Warm objects retain heat after sunset, creating patterns that reveal safe paths or potential hiding spots. Cooler areas may indicate water, shade, or obstacles. The reptiles combine this information with scent and touch to build a mental map of their surroundings. Heat sensing allows them to move confidently, even when visibility is minimal.
It also helps them locate prey that retains body warmth longer than the surrounding environment. The method becomes a reliable guide in habitats where ground temperature shifts predictably during the night. This behavior demonstrates how reptiles integrate thermal information into navigation strategies. Certain insects orient themselves during long flights using nothing but starlight. These insects have visual systems capable of detecting star patterns under extremely low light. They rely on the arrangement of stars rather than brightness, allowing them to maintain direction even when conditions change. As they travel, they compare their position relative to fixed points in the sky. This prevents drifting and ensures they reach feeding grounds, breeding sites, or migratory destinations with accuracy. The strategy remains effective across large distances because star patterns do not shift unexpectedly. It provides a stable system when other cues such as scent, wind, or magnetic signals become unreliable. The behavior shows how celestial navigation appears not only in birds and mammals, but also in small nocturnal insects that rely heavily on consistent guidance during long flights. Night has a way of settling over the world that changes everything it touches. As daylight fades, the landscape shifts into a quieter shape, and the familiar edges soften. Sounds stretch farther. Air cools and moves differently. Shadows take on patterns that only exist during these hours. The pace of the world slows, yet countless living things begin their routine with steady purpose. The night is not an interruption to the natural world. It is half of it. It is a time shaped by restraint, precision, and awareness. It brings a balance that daylight alone cannot provide. In the dark, plants exchange moisture with the air in steady rhythms.
Soil releases heat stored from the day. Water settles into calmer movement, carrying faint signals across its surface. Even the wind behaves differently, slipping through trees and over open ground with a quiet that is impossible under the sun. Every part of the environment changes its behavior at night, adjusting to the cooler air and the softness of reduced light. Nothing rushes. Nothing pushes for attention. Everything moves according to conditions that have shaped these hours for millions of years. Some animals begin to stir while the world above them sweeps. Others reduce their movement and retreat into safe spaces carved out over generations. Each species responds to the night with its own version of order. Some travel with caution, reading information that we cannot sense. Some rest in communal shelters where warmth and safety come from shared presence. Some send signals through air, water, or earth that travel farther and clearer under darkness. Every decision made in the night carries purpose.
Every action fits into a system wider than any single species. Even the smallest motions form part of a larger pattern. A shift of leaves, a faint tremor across the ground, a change in the direction of cool air to the creatures that depend on these signs. Each detail is meaningful. Each quiet moment holds information that guides navigation, communication, feeding, or rest. Nothing is wasted, and nothing is random. The night may look still, but it is full of continuous evaluation and adjustment. Life in these hours depends on attention to subtlety and the ability to interpret what cannot be seen. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is a different kind of activity, one that unfolds without urgency, one that leaves space for recovery and balance. The darkness becomes a gentle refuge, a space where bodies can conserve their energy, where the senses grow sharper, and where ancient patterns unfold with quiet consistency. Countless species depend on this nightly rhythm for their survival, and entire landscapes lean on these cycles to stay balanced. Night brings a soft relief from heat, a protective veil against exposure, and a peaceful pause that allows the environment to reset itself before dawn returns. The world uses these hours to breathe in ways that daylight rarely allows. As the night deepens, much of life slips into states of rest that repair internal systems and prepare them for the next stretch of activity. Breathing slows, muscles loosen. Minds that spent the day navigating complexity settle into quiet. Even animals that remain awake move with a measured presence that does not disturb the stillness around them. The world aligns with a softer pace that encourages calm rather than urgency. This is the atmosphere you are resting within now. A world that does not demand anything from you. A world not built on speed or noise. Everything around you, even the parts you cannot see, is operating gently and steadily. Night supports that. It gives room for quiet, room for thought, room for the mind to loosen its grip on the day. If you enjoy these quiet moments, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. For now, you can let your body settle further. Let your breathing find whatever pace feels natural. Let the weight of the day fade without needing to be resolved. There is nothing you must do, nothing you must hold on to. The night is already carrying everything for you. Rest well, and good night.